Hello, crew. Welcome. Welcome to another big conversation. I was having a conversation with someone just the other day about small talk and how much small talk is something that I am very well versed at, but something that I despise. Anybody else with me? This is real talk, man. This is big talk. This is the talk, the conversations that are deep, that are meaningful, that are purposeful, that are passionate, that are powerful. And look, I know that you're not going to agree with everything that I have to say, nor should you. It's not how the world works. In saying that, I invite you to have an open mind. I invite you to have an open heart that as we talk about these big topics, especially what we're going to cover today, you come with an open mind, you come with an open heart and just inquire. Just inquire, because I'm not the authority. I'm not the authority. I believe that God in Jesus Christ is the authority, and that's the one that we must seek. That's the one that has the authority. I'm simply a mouthpiece. So take it to heart. If you're challenged by our conversations, that's a good thing. We ought to be challenged. We ought to have our edges stretched, don't you think? How else do we learn? How else do we grow? How else do we develop our ideas? How else do we come to a place where the consciousness within us gets awakened to new information? So welcome. Welcome here to this conversation. It's been a little hot minute since I've been on the mic, and today I just come to you with a heavy but hopeful heart. I was at the gym just this morning and I get a text message, and the comment, the caption read, "So sad, so devastating." And I thought, oh, it's probably, a friend of mine sent me a message. A video was there as well. And I'm like, I don't know what this is about. I will just, I'm not going to ruin my good mood yet. I see a message from my mum, and there's a photo attached, and we've been expecting a new baby in the family. A grandnephew, her great grandson, has just been born, and so I'm excited to open the photo and see what it is. And as I read through the message, there's some mixed messages in there, and I find out that Charlie Kirk has been killed today. And I just can't say I fell to my knees, but I certainly had to sit down. Some of you don't know who Charlie Kirk is. Some of you who are well versed with who Charlie Kirk is. Charlie Kirk is a 31-year-old man who is deeply passionate about nationalism in America and deeply passionate about God. He was a man of faith, deeply Christian and deeply proud of it. An amazing debater, full of knowledge, full of an ability to be able to really get his point across, to be able to listen to other people, but so steadfast in his beliefs. And I've been following him for quite a number of years in terms of his political viewpoints, in terms of his religious viewpoints, and he's inspired me greatly in many, many ways. And I felt very gutted. If you haven't looked in Charlie Kirk's information, go check him out. And look, by me doing this podcast here, you might sit there and go, oh, I thought I really liked Luna. I thought I really liked Lunaria Gaia, and now I don't because she's on that side of the fence. I'm okay with it. Again, I ask you to have an open mind. I ask you to have an open heart. Once upon a time, I lived on a side of the fence that was like, I am God, that I'm seeking my own self, that I'm seeking my own approval, which I think is in some ways necessary and part of our self-love development. If you've watched my content for a long time, this kind of conversation, this tangent might seem like really out there. But for those of you who are new, you won't notice any different. You don't know the difference. But I've been a big advocate of self-love. And I'm not to say that that is not something that is necessary to build our self-esteem, to know who we are and to know our value is super important. But also what I've come to realize is how our extensive navel-gazing can lead to our own destruction as well, because we position ourselves as God. We position ourselves as the Holy One. We position ourselves as righteous, when in reality, for a long time, and I'm just going to speak for myself here, I was self-righteous. And, God willing, I'm being sanctified of that, changed, grown out of that as time goes on, but I'm human. So it still happens. Charlie Kirk, as far as I'm concerned, and his assassination, which is what it is. Whether or not we can call it that is murder. I don't know whether or not YouTube's going to ban me for that, but hey, I don't have enough followers to make that a thing anyway. His death, his murder is an attack against Christians. And whether or not you're a Christian yourself, whether or not you're curious about Christianity, I wasn't for a long time. It was something I'm like, yeah. It's the softy kind of religion, right? And it's religion, and I hated religion. I felt like religion was something that was pressed upon people, and it was something that was just erroneous, that I was above it, to be honest. I really thought that I was above Christianity. I was above this idea of religion because I was spiritual, didn't you know? And yet at the core of spiritualism, isn't it just me? Like, even if you follow a Buddhist path, the whole thing, yeah, you're going to be kind to others and you're going to be good to others, but you're on your own path of enlightenment. Maybe you are called to teach other people that, but the purpose of the Buddhist path is for you to be liberated. I love the purpose of the Christian path is to know that someone else, Jesus, has already liberated you. All you need to do is put your faith in him. And then you need to spread goodness around the world. That's the Christian message. And you have a look at someone like Charlie Kirk, who stood so strongly in his faith and yet has been killed because of it. I see a rising happening. And I think this is going to be a call to arms for Christians, not in a way that maybe that there is a revolution, a revolt of hatred or anger or violence. It's not what Christians do. It's not what we're called to do. In fact, Jesus teaches us to turn the other cheek. Now, many of you have heard that term before, and maybe you didn't know that it came from Jesus. To turn the other cheek, well, what does that mean? Are we just meant to be put up with abuse? Is that what that means? No, you want to know what that means? If you're slap on your face, then this side of your cheek, your right side of your cheek that you've just been slapped on, is red raw. It's hot. And you might want to respond in anger. You might want to respond in heat. To turn the other cheek is not necessarily to say, slap me again. To turn the other cheek is to approach the one who's just slapped you with a cool cheek. Is to cool your head. Is to calm down and to recognize that we do not fight evil with evil. That is not the Christian way. We fight evil with good. For our struggle, this is from Ephesians 6:12, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but it's against the rulers, against the powers, against all the authorities of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. My friends, there's bigger stuff going on right now than what pant size we're wearing. There is much bigger stuff going on right now than whether or not we are getting our goals, whether or not we have the career that we want to have, whether or not we get all the goals that we've ever wanted to have. There is a much bigger game, a much bigger, I want to say, contest. There's a much bigger scope or sphere of things that are happening here on earth because it's playing out in the heavenly realms. Now, maybe right now you want to switch off and go, this is far too woo-woo. Go ahead, you're welcome to. But if you're noticing an unsettling within the earth, an unsettling within you, if you notice that you cannot be filled by the world anymore, right? No matter how much you consume, no matter how much you gain, no matter how much you have achievement, no matter how much you gratify the desires of the flesh, you are unsatisfied. If that is you, I implore you to keep listening, to keep watching, because there is a God-shaped hole within inside of you, and I believe that we're coming to a stage where we have to choose our side. And I'm not saying left-wing, right-wing politics. I'm not saying choose your, to be against someone else. I'm not sitting there saying that there is a God's people and they are the ones that are going to win. The battle has already been won, ladies and gentlemen, but you have to choose sides. I think that we're in a stage in human development where agnosticism isn't going to cut it. Now there's those of you that are maybe atheists that are listening on and want to comment to the wazoo, go ahead. I'm happy to have a conversation with you. But those of you who have some sort of spiritual belief, have something that you think that there is as a higher power, maybe you call it the universe, maybe you call it spirit, maybe you call it God, maybe you don't yet know what it is, but you know that it's there. That's agnosticism. You think that there is a God, but you don't know what that is yet, and you're happy to just like, oh, okay, I'll think about that some other time. I think the time is near. And whether or not that's, I don't mean to evoke fear in you, but I encourage you to evoke urgency. Because we don't know individually when our life is going to be taken. We don't know when the end in our own life is going to be. So what side are you on? Are you on the side of the world? Or are you on the side of God? And if you yet haven't met God, if you don't know who he is yet, I know that some of you be triggered by the word of he, let's roll with it. You can do uncomfortable things. If you haven't met God yet, personally, and figured out who that is yet, ladies and gentlemen, it is time. Because I believe that the clock is ticking in a micro sense in your own life and in a macro sense in the world. In the book of Revelation, it's our last book of the Bible. It is a prophetic, like it's a prophecy about the end times. You may have heard about that. And I don't think that we need to go crazy about that kind of stuff. But what is said is that the Christians will begin to be persecuted in a very large way. There was a shooting of children in mass in prayer recently in America. Christians personally attacked. Christians. Children. Now, if you were a God, wouldn't you be mad? I think a lot of people have a really tough time with God being wrathful. I know I did. I struggled big time in my walk to faith with Jesus because I found that a wrathful God, a jealous God, one that would condemn people to death like he did a lot in the Old Testament, I found that really hard to reconcile. I would say to myself, but isn't God all loving? Why would he kill people? That seems insane. And yet I come back to Ephesians 6:12. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but it is against the rulers, the powers, against the authorities of this dark world and the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. There's something much bigger going on than we could ever fathom. We're only seeing things through our own individual lens. But there is something bigger, way beyond us that is actually happening here on earth. And we have an opportunity to be able to choose what side we're on. Are we on the side of the world or are we on the side of God? There's something bigger going on here. And so that question about a wrathful God, that question about the one that kills or gets vengeance. Vengeance is mine. I read to you from Romans. This is the book of Romans. It says, do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. Hear this again. Do not take revenge. This is 12:19, Romans 12:19. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, it is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord. And on the contrary, this is what we are called to do. If your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals upon his head. Do not overcome evil. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. The good news of Jesus and the gospel, my friends, is that it's good. There's goodness in that. And maybe we feel like it's passive to be like, oh, well, we're just going to pray. We're just going to pray. Let God be the vengeful one. And again, people find that really uncomfortable. But hang on, what about love? If God is so loving, how could he possibly be vengeful? Isn't he meant to be forgiving? For all you parents out there, tell me if you would be mad if somebody tried to kill your child. If somebody was abusing your child on a regular basis, would you be angry? Isn't that justified? Because we have other maybe religions or schools of thought of like complete peace, but it's passive. There is justified anger. There's justice because God, yes, is all loving, but is also all just. How is that possible? How is it possible that someone can be both just in their entirety, as in fair, and also loving? Because don't you think that somebody who's gone out of their way to harm another person should be punished? Think about that for yourself. How fair do you think that it is? How just do you think it is that someone who has harmed another intentionally will just be forgiven? That's mercy, right? That's mercy, that's love. And I know that many people in my own journey many, many years ago would think to myself, yeah, but isn't that what the Christians do? That all they have to do is repent. All they have to do is say, oh God, I'm sorry, and they're in. I had a real trouble with that for a long time. And my reconciliation with that, that's not what the gospel is. Yeah, anybody at any point in time can repent and they will be forgiven by putting their faith in Jesus, by taking the gift, the free gift that Jesus gives us. And the free gift that Jesus gives us is the payment of debt. He clears our sin, and then we sin no more. Hear me loud and clearly with this. True faith in Christianity is that you give your life to Jesus because he has given his life to you. You hand over in surrender to the one true God who has given his life for you to pay the debt of our wrongdoings. And then you are transformed by that. That's what people miss. That's what I missed. This is not just say a Hail Mary, God will forgive me, now I can keep going on being a jerk to people. No. The more that you walk alongside Jesus, the more that he transforms you, and the less you will be able to do the things that harm others. Because you will be transformed, you will be washed clean from the inside. And that's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, when we have this personal development world, which I've been in for a long time, and they really did lay the groundwork for me to be able to, create good soil so that I could be able to hear the gospel of Jesus, of this good news. The good news here, and maybe you're switching off because you've heard that said before and blah, blah, blah. Have ears to listen right now. Open your eyes right now, because if you keep living for the world, guess what you're going to get? Look at the world. You don't have to take my word for it. You really don't. You don't have to look at it through me. As I said, I'm not the authority. You have eyes, you have ears, you have a heart. Look into the world and tell me if that's the kind of thing that you want to follow. Because it's not working out for us. It's never really worked out for us. And maybe we sit there and say, well, why is one religion better than the other, etc., etc. Jesus teaches us to turn the other cheek. Jesus teaches us that it's not by our own works that we are forgiven, but he comes and atones for us. He pays the debt. Think about a bill that you have to pay. Maybe you've racked up a credit card debt of tens of thousands of dollars. Maybe you're sitting there in a crappy financial situation that you think you'll never get out of. Are we not spiritually bankrupt? Do we not have a debt that is so big to pay? And maybe you're sitting there going, but I'm a good person. I do good deeds and I've never really killed anybody and I've never, harmed people intentionally. Really? Can't we just be really honest with ourselves for a second here? Take a deep breath and get honest. Because maybe in the depth of our call, we're good. Of course, at large, we do good things. But do we gossip? Do we white lie? Do we curse? Think about that word. Do we curse other people by swearing at them? Are we violent in our head or in our reactions? Do we harm ourselves by not taking care of our flesh? Do we harm one another by our selfish ways of navel-gazing. Because at the end of the day, none of us are free of debt. None of us, except one man. One man came and lived here 2,000 years ago. God turned into flesh, arrived here on earth and lived a completely sinless life. How is that possible? That seems ridiculous. And I encourage you right now, if you do not have a relationship with God, if you have not met God, if you have not, then I encourage you to go seek. Seek and you shall find. Knock and it shall be answered. If you don't know what the gospel is all about and you want to know more, come hang out with me. Let's have a conversation. I'm not here to convert you necessarily, but I'm here to share with you what I know to be true. Start reading. Maybe I'll pish-posh the Bible. But, I think very often we don't want to move into a space of knowledge of true wisdom because we don't want to change. I don't want to give up my fleshly things. I'm quite happy with my hedonistic desires being fulfilled within the world. But you know what? The day's going to come. The day's going to come where you stand before your Maker and you will give an account. And I believe that we must choose in this lifetime before we get there. God gives us lots of opportunities to do so. This is one of them if you're listening. Most of us have heard about Christianity. I certainly had. I mean, good heavens, we have Christmas. We have Easter in the Western world. We have Christian holidays. We've heard, we know about Jesus. And here's the interesting thing. You might think to yourself, yeah, Jesus existed. This is how I used to think. Yeah, Jesus was a good teacher. He was great. He was a great moral teacher and he taught amazing things. But I don't think that he was divine. I think he was just a really good teacher. Okay, cool. Let me run this past for you for just a moment. You think that he's a really good teacher. You think that his morals are sound. You think that his viewpoints are solid. Okay. Are you just discounting the fact that he called himself God? Are you just discounting the fact that he comes as the Messiah? Are you just discounting the fact that he claimed to be God? And that's why he was killed, by the way, even if you don't believe in the resurrection. That's why he was killed, because he claimed to be Messiah. He claimed to be the chosen one by God, delivered as God to come and save everybody. That's what he explicitly claimed. So either he's right in his teaching, therefore what he has said about himself and his claims, or he's a nutter. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, yeah, but on that case, he was just insane. On that case, he was just falsely teaching. But everything else, he was pretty good. I challenge you right now. He's either insane, wrong, or right. And ladies and gents, the more that I've learnt about Christianity, and I'm going to say that word differently, because it's not the religion that I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about the man-made thing. I'm not talking about following processes or laws. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about relationship, which is what Jesus has invited us into, to have a personal relationship with the Maker. That's what I'm talking about right now. The more that I've walked with Jesus, the more that I've sought him specifically, and I encourage you to do that too. Seek him specifically. Read the Bible, right? Read it in the lens of, I want to get to know who God is. And if you want to know, start with the New Testament, start with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They are the Gospels. They are the direct teachings of God. The whole thing is, for you spiritualists out there, spirituality, New Age, the depth of spirituality in this book alone is absolutely mind-blowing. Soul enriching, filling in a way that nothing has ever been. I encourage you to explore. Agnostic's just not going to cut it anymore. We lie to ourselves and say that we're agnostic. You just haven't chosen yet. And And how can we possibly choose if we haven't inquired? To give you a bit of insight, I was at the top of my game, really, in lots of ways. Look, you can always get high, you can always get bigger peaks. But I had done what I'd set out to do in practically every facet of my life. I just finished writing my second best-selling book. I was in the best shape of my life. I had hit six figures in my coaching business. I lived on the coast. I had a beautiful, successful, loving relationship in my life. I wasn't currently in one, but I didn't want to be in one. I had amazing friends, followers, like everything that I could possibly desire. Maybe I could just jack that up a bit more and upgrade all of that. But I had reached everything that I'd wanted to reach practically. And something occurred to me, ladies and gents, that no more of the flesh, no more of the things of the world was going to fulfill me. How is adding another zero to my bank balance going to fulfill me when the first ones didn't? How was it that losing more weight was going to fulfill me when this lot didn't? If the things that you've already gotten in your life do not fulfill you now, guess what? They're not going to fulfill you, even if you get more of them. It's never going to fill you. It's like trying to get filled with fairy floss. You might get high for a moment. It might feel really good. But at the end of the day, you're burning quick fuel that's just wrapped up in air. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to make a choice at some point in time. And I believe that we will be asked, what do you stand for? Who do you believe in? And if you're like, I don't know who God is, go find out. And I have faith that you will land on the truth. I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. Jesus made that claim. This is a truth claim. And all schools of thought make a truth claim. You make a truth claim. You make a truth claim that you believe in the universe. What's that based on? A feeling? Is it factual? A lot of people, myself included, dismiss Christianity, dismiss Jesus, actually, specifically, dismiss Jesus without ever inquiring. That's what I did. I was like, oh, I know what that's all about. Jesus was a cool dude. He lived, he died, righty, whatever. But did I actually inquire? Did I actually look? Did I seek him? And when you seek, you shall find. And maybe you arrive at some kind of conclusion that suggests that you don't believe, but at least you found out. At least you've looked into it extensively. Go look up Lee Strobel, A Case for Christ, an atheist, a staunch atheist whose wife becomes a believer, and he's challenged. He was a criminal journalist, researcher. And so he would constantly look for evidence. And he's like, okay, I'm just going to take a weekend. I'm going to disprove that Jesus is God, resurrection, all that kind of stuff. Get over and done with. I can get my wife back. 18 months later, not only could he not disprove it, but he found piles and piles and piles of evidence, historical, eyewitness accounts, archaeological evidence that showed that this is the way, the truth, and the life. This atheist. And it's funny because people go, yeah, but the Bible was written by man and it's been changed so many times and there's all these different translations. What most people don't even fathom, which I didn't understand, I think it's called contextual criticism. Don't quote me on that, but in contextual criticism, we have this line in the sand whereby historians decide whether or not something is reputable, something that we can lean on and rely on. Most of you, without having looked into it at all, would believe that Augustus Julius Caesar existed. Caesar from the Romans. Everyone was like, yeah, we know Caesar lived. That's what happened. Yeah, cool. Right? But did you know that from the first writing of a book about Caesar to any copy being made was 1,500 years? And in that, there's only 10 copies that were ever made. And that's considered historically accurate and factual. The stories of Jesus started getting written down between 80 years. Within 80 years of Jesus' life, the people who wrote the Gospels were alive and had met Jesus. And there's over 5,000 copies were made in that first 80 to 1,000 years, 80 to 800 years. Over 5,000 Greek manuscripts alone, let alone the Hebrew, was created. Is there. Documented. People sit there and go, but there's so many contrasts in the Bible. Have you read it? Do you know? And tell me this, between Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, there are different perspectives. If you, me, Joe, Bob, and Sarah were all at the scene of a car collision, and you see it from point A, I'm from point B, point C, and point D, we would all have had a different experience. But we would all say that a crash occurred. But I might say, no, it was the blue car's fault. You might say it was the red car's fault. Joe Blogs over there might say that it was the bicycle's fault. And I'm like, what bicycle? So we would tell it from different stories, but the fact is the fact that the cars crashed. It's the same thing. The fact that the Gospels, the four Gospels, don't have these moments of they're not contradictions, they're moments of different perspectives, only further proves the legitimacy of it. Look into it for yourself, because we are sitting there at the time with someone like Charlie Kirk, who's just been killed for his faith. I don't know exactly why, but he is a staunch Christian. He stands for what he believes in. He speaks very openly about that, and he was shot from a distance, probably professionally. More information hasn't come. I haven't seen a lot of details around it, but that's what I know to be true right now in terms of what has been delivered to me. And I think this is a call for each and every single one of us, that if you are agnostic or undecided or on the fence, it's time to get off, man. You've got enough opportunities to go look into it. Go find out. Do your research, man. And if you come to the conclusion that you sit there and go, no, there is a God that is better, or there is no God, make a decision. Find out for yourself. And many people say, but how could you possibly know that it's true? Go look into it. Go look into it. Let's have conversations. Look at Charlie Kirk's work. Even if you want to define, what's the word? What is that word? It's going to come to me in a second. Please hold. No. Even if you want to defend and go against every single thing that you find and read, go in with an open heart, go in with an open mind, because the time is coming. At the very least, your time is coming. Even if you're 20 or 40 or 80, look, Charlie Kirk was 31 when he died. My brother was 28. Babies die. You're alive. You have ears. If you have ears to listen right now, find out, because there's a spiritual warfare going on, and there's much more that's happening in this world. I'm confident and comfortable with where I'm going when this ends, when I die. And I'm not saying that God's on my side. I'm on God's side. I'm with Jesus. I'm on Team Jesus. Because he's the God of peace. He teaches me to turn the other cheek. After Jesus had been brutally beaten, so much so that his organs were hanging out and you could not tell what gender he was anymore. That's how badly, brutally beaten and flogged he was. Should have killed him, it didn't. They then nailed his hands and his feet to a cross to crucify him. The most brutal and humiliating kind of death. They had a crown of thorns bashed into his head. I know this is graphic, but it's true. He stood on that cross, or hung on that cross, more accurately. And one of the very last things that he said before he committed his spirit and died, he said, "Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do." Show me a God. Show me anybody that can have that level of mercy. Show me anybody that can have that level of grace. Sometimes I don't even want to forgive the car in front of me for cutting me off. Right? If you let him, Jesus will transform your entire life. The bitter parts of your heart, the coldness within inside of you, that emptiness will be filled by something that has living water. So you will never thirst again. You will have living bread. He said, I am the bread of life. I am the resurrection. He will awaken dry bones. We are spiritually dead inside, and he will resurrect you. And that might seem like a fantasy. It might seem like a la, 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 la. But the reality is, if you look at true people walking with Jesus in faith, you will find people who are filled with peace that makes no sense, because we are not standing on our own strength. I pray for Charlie Kirk's family. I pray for everybody who is heartbroken and devastated by this news. And in the spirit of the Lord that I follow, in the spirit of my Jesus, I pray for the shooter. I pray for the family of the shooter. I pray for everybody who wants to cause hatred against anybody else for any reason, including those that follow Jesus. Live at peace with everyone, coming back to Romans 12:18. Live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. He is the justice maker. He will make a way. And that's the beautiful thing about God. That's the beautiful thing about the message of Jesus, is that we have that debt to pay. Coming back to that bill, we have that credit card debt to pay. We have a debt that is so huge that we could never pay it back ourselves by doing a million good deeds in our life. How could we possibly? And yet he made a way. He made a way that in the moment, maybe you don't know this, but Jesus came and lived a sinless life and offered himself up on the cross, brutally killed. He took on the punishment, the wrath, the justice, the fairness, right? He made it fair, because if God just forgave because he loves us, well, hang on a second here. How is that fair? How is that justice? Okay, so someone says, someone kills a child and you say, oh, well, I forgive them. Justice needs to be served. The punishment needs to be fulfilled, doesn't it? Don't you think? Because that is love as well. That is fairness. Without any discipline, without any consequences, there is no justice. But could God really pour his wrath down on each and every single one of us when we're just trying to do our best? That seems unfair. So he sent his only son, himself, in the flesh, to take on that, not only for the ones that had lived the 2,000 years before, however many years you believe in before Jesus, but into perpetuity, for forevermore. Whatever sins I carry today, whatever evilness I carry within my heart today, and we all have it. Show me any of you who say that you haven't wanted to punch somebody in the head, you haven't wanted to stab somebody, you haven't wished ill against someone. Of course you have, and if you haven't, you're lying. And that within itself is evil, right? That within itself is not good. God made a way for us. He takes on that punishment so that we will be made new. And we won't keep on sinning. We will be transformed. It's not necessarily an immediate thing. We have positional sanctification. We get made holy in a moment. Yes, but then we have progressional sanctification where we just get worked on day by day by day. The things that I used to desire no longer appeal to me anymore. You've got heaviness in your heart because you've been living in the world. It's time to start living in the flesh. Outside of the flesh, rather. Stop living in the flesh and start living in the spirit. That is where your fulfillment is. I'm reading out of the book of Romans right now. It's one of my, favorite times. Favorite book. Absolutely. I'm going to read for you The Day is Near. It's Romans 13:11. And do this, understanding the present time. The hour has already come. Listen to this. For you to wake up from your slumber, because our salvation is nearer now than when we first believed. The night is nearly over. Like the dawn's breaking, my friends. The day is almost here. So let us put aside the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light. Let us behave decently as in the daytime, not in carousing and drunkenness, not in sexual immorality and debauchery, not in dissension and jealousy. Rather, Clothe yourselves with the Lord Jesus Christ and do not think about how to gratify the desires of the flesh. It's time to put it down. It's time to put down the flesh. You don't need it anymore. My favorite passage, I think, maybe just now, but it comes from Romans 12:2, and it says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you can test and accept God's will for you in his life, God's will in your life, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." When you're willing to put down the desires of your flesh and you align yourself with your maker, he impresses his desires upon you and you become more like him. You were made in his image. You were made in the image of God, and yet we are reflecting the image of the world. And the world is a dark place, my friends. But God is the light. Jesus is the light. He's the God of peace. And I know that he turns everything for good. What Satan means for evil, God will make for good. Blessings to you. Questions, queries are always welcome. If you know me personally, reach out. Reach out to me on WhatsApp, send me a message. If you have questions around any of this, I'm here to talk about it. I feel compelled to come and have this conversation with you today, and I'd love to hear from you and your thoughts. May God bless you. May God keep you. I pray that you open your heart, that you open your eyes, and that you really investigate. Like C.S. Lewis says, I'm going to paraphrase it because I can't remember it verbatim. But he says, Jesus is either incredibly important or not important at all. He cannot be mediocre. Because if the truth of Jesus is the truth, then he's of the utmost importance that you consider it. But if it's not, then it means nothing. It's Jesus or nothing. It's God or nothing. And if you want nothing, go for it. Go for it. By all means. But if you have not yet considered Jesus and decided that you're going for nothing, I encourage you to make it to make some investigations. Because I was arrogant. I was arrogant in thinking that I already knew, but I didn't. I really did not know the truth of this message. May the Spirit come upon you with big blessings. I love you. I know that God loves you. That could be hard for some of us to swallow. It's probably hard for you to swallow that I love you. But I do. Hey man, if people can hate for no reason, I can certainly love for no reason. Big love to you. Until next time. I'll catch you on the flip side.